Buddy, welcome to church. Why don't you go ahead and take a seat? He saved my life. He's gonna walk with you the whole way. That's how wonderful he is. Hey, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for those of you who are tuning in online. I know that some of you are nearby, some of you are far away. We consider, no matter where you are, you're part of the Fierce family, so we're thankful that you are here. Today, we're gonna talk about the promise poison. We're gonna talk about the promise poison in dating and in marriage. Before we jump into that though, I got some exciting things for us to talk about. When it was rolling around to 2023, we decided we need to take another look at how we're doing youth ministry. And so we kind of shut down for a little while and we retooled and we reimagined. And the 21st of May, we're relaunching a youth group and a middle school group. Now, let me give you some details. The middle school group, this is May 21st, is going to be happening during service. It's going to be happening like right now. We would have just worshiped, and then there's going to be some leaders in the back, middle school leaders. They're going to be waving one of these green light swords around. And then every middle school student is invited. They're going to go with them back to the youth room, and they're going to do their own little service. They're going to learn stuff that's Jesus on their level. It's going to be super awesome. And then their leaders will bring them out to the lobby. As service ends, you'll meet your kids back out in the lobby. For high school students, it's going to be happening that evening, Sunday night at 6 p.m. It is for high school students, and it's going to be their own, again, little community that is focused on growing them one step closer to Jesus, depending on where they are with him. So I think it's going to be really awesome. One of the most important things I want to announce to you, though, is we're calling it Expedition this year. It's not the Wave, it's Expedition. We're doing things a little bit different with the high school retreat. Okay, this is happening June 14th to 17th. And guys, honestly, we've worked really hard to get this together. Many of you have given significantly so we can reduce a price to go. But one of the things we were looking at as we were retooling youth ministry was we found out, we asked the question, where do kids grow the most? Like, what do they do? What happens? Is it something that happens during youth group? And it is, it's small group time. But the thing that helps students grow more than anything is retreats. It's when they go away, they get off the grid, they process and they discuss. And so we've invested a lot into this. I would encourage you to invest a lot in it. Go ahead and sign up your kid and do it soon because we're getting closer and closer, and then you're gonna forget and you're like, oh no. It's going to be very healthy. And I'm a dad, man, and I'll tell you what, I'll do anything I can do to get my kids closer to Jesus Christ. So I wanna encourage you to go ahead and sign up for that today. As we get into this dating and marriage message, I know that there's a lot of folks who come and maybe you didn't have a good marriage experience. Maybe you don't feel like you're in a good marriage experience right now. Maybe you've got a lot of regrets. Maybe you're dating again because something went wrong before. Or maybe you're young and you're just thinking about the next few stages. Any of those are really good because we're going to learn about keeping some of the poison out of the body. Last week, Pastor Andy came and he talked to us about the right person myth, right? And he said, once you meet the right person, everything will be all right. That's the myth. I'm gonna give you a new myth this weekend, but I actually wanna change the visual a little bit. They are myths, and the myths, they cause problems, but let's call it poison instead, because we're in a medicine series. These myths are poisonous, okay? These are the poisons that cause our relationships to not work the right way. When we believe these false things, we act in ways that aren't really based in reality, and so things go wrong in our relationships. So we said last week, there was the right person myth or poison. And all we said was everybody wants to find the right person, but fewer people are really fantasizing about being the right person. And so they're looking everywhere, here, there, and everywhere, and they're trying to find, if I can just find that one, it doesn't matter what I do, it doesn't matter where I've been, it doesn't matter even what choices I make, because all I need to do is magic. I've seen it in movies. All I do is I find the person, and then woo, happily ever after. That's how that myth works. The problem is it doesn't really work like that, and who we're becoming is important. And we want to ask the question, who would I have to be for God to look at their son or daughter and say, that's an awesome one for you. I'm picking them because of their priorities, because of the way they're thinking about me and you and everything else. So we talked about that, but now let's talk about the promise poison. The promise poison says, as long as you promise, you don't need to prepare. As long as you promise, you don't need to prepare. This is really the myth that says, I know that things aren't really great right now. I know that we've got some good stuff and we got some bad stuff. I think if we just get married, if we just put it together, hey, I do, man, that's the promise. Just promise, and I bet you everything will just even out. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like maybe there's a kink in the hose, and saying I do undoes that kink. And whoo, now it's a Russian river, baby. Now we're all good because we said I do. And that's just not really how it works. I know it works that way in the movies, but you rarely see the end of their lives in the movies. You see like the first, few weeks. But this myth totally is going to let you down. And you know this instinctively, okay? Those of you who are maybe you're in sales or you've been practicing medicine or you've been practicing law or you've been practicing your trade, whatever it is, you know that when you first started day one, you maybe knew about it, you knew what it was, but you go 10 years into that thing and you know way more than you used to know. Because you've had day after day after day where 100 problems came your way and you learned not only how to do the thing, but how to do the thing around this and around them and with this going on. You know way more on year 10 than you knew on day one. Why? Because you practiced. That's why they call it practicing medicine or practicing law. That's why they're practicing every day. They're practicing how to do it. Practice makes permanent. And when we're not practicing, we're likely to get it wrong. See, if we don't train the muscle, we're gonna lose the muscle. So some of you might have experienced this as you've gotten a little older. Maybe you were great at baseball. Maybe you could throw the ball like nobody else. And years go by and someone gets the idea, let's go out in the yard and let's play ball. And you go to throw the ball and you're like, wow, that didn't work like it used to work. Like it didn't go as far, still close, you know what I'm saying? But something has changed. And what changes? You got out of practice. My son has this thing called the Nintendo Switch. Some of you know what that is. Others of you think of like a super futuristic Game Boy. That's what it is, okay? And so he plays all his cool new games, and I come along and I'm like, oh man, they got the old games on there, and I like the old games, man. I grew up playing the old games, all right? Like Excite Bike and Super Mario 3. I like it simple, man. Give me something really simple. So I see his Switch. I'm like, oh, I can play the old games on this. Hey, Johnny, let me take a look at that. And as I'm playing, I'm like, something is wrong with this controller because it's not working like it worked, when I was 14 and 16 and 17. Like something's wrong. Oh, what's wrong is me, okay? I'm like 5 seconds slower than I used to be. I even know what I want to do, but my hands don't do it anymore. That's because I got out of practice. And anytime we practice wrong or get out of practice, we're not gonna be as strong. The body that we're trying to use, the healthy marriage or relationship is not going to be as strong. So that's one thing that goes wrong. We don't realize that we need to train it. We think if we just promise, things will take care of itself. I'll give you one more illustration. Let's say that you really want to be in the NFL. You're like, next year, I'm gonna walk on, man, and I'm gonna be on the team. Now, all I'm gonna have to do is walk up to that head coach and be like, look, man, I know that I haven't practiced. I watch a lot of football, but here's what I tell you. I promise I'm gonna do good. He's gonna have you escorted from the premises because it doesn't matter if you promise, you're not any good, okay? And too often, we're saying I do, and all that did was it made us accountable, but it did not make us capable. It didn't make us actually good at this thing called having a partner. So that's the first thing that goes wrong. But here's one other thing, just to kind of lob it in. We all come with expectations. Whether you know it or not, whether you want to admit it, you have expectations of what's going to happen in a relationship, what's going to happen in marriage, what's going to happen when you're dating. There's certain ways you're expecting another person to behave. Now, if they don't behave all those ways right away, you're going to be like, no big deal, we're just dating, I can be gracious. I want them to know that I'm gracious. I want them to know it's no big deal. So as time goes by, I'm sure they'll get better. But then you go ahead and get married. And then you find out, wow, like I really thought they would talk to me more than this. Or I thought there would be more affection. Or I just thought our sexual relationship would just be more. Like that's what I thought. Or I thought he always talked about making money and being real ambitious, but I feel like that's not there. And what's happening is you have these expectations and they're not being met. And while you started off gracious, it's getting harder now. And it happens to every one of us, you're slowly starting to turn inward and be like, I can't believe they're keeping me from that thing. Because when I made the deal, when I said I do, I thought this was all, the hose was gonna become unkinked, but it didn't. And so resentment begins to grow. And what it reveals, and this is for every one of us, it reveals a little bit Some of those needs are very legit, but because we start to demand it, it reveals our own self-importance. Self-importance. That means I'm primarily focused on me getting what I want out of the relationship and no longer focused on getting the other person what they want. And this is the tricky thing about Jesus, man. See, with Jesus, a lot of stuff is backwards. You know this because you've seen this in other places. Jesus says, hey, if you want to be first, you got to be last. If you really want life, you got to lay down your life. Hey, you want stuff? You want more? Give stuff away and you'll get more. The way it works in the kingdom is, hey, you want to feel important? Make someone else feel outrageously special and important. But if you try to get everybody else to make you feel important, you're going to find that what you're doing isn't even important. You become less important when you try to make everybody else realize how important you are. Why would that be? Well, because your creator would say, I didn't create you to try to get people to think you're important. I created you to love and to make other people feel important and loved. And it only works the right way is if I'm trying to make someone else feel important, suddenly my tanks start to get filled. Jesus said this, John 15:12, this is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. That last little piece is really important for today. Just as I have loved you. That's the pattern. Okay, little intermission here. You guys are doing okay. I have a feeling the people online are clapping way louder than you guys, and I'm getting a whole lot more amens. Okay, so try to mimic them a little bit, and you guys get a little bit louder. I mean, golly, it's 10:30, almost 10:30. I think y'all should be up by now, so let's hear it. And I'm gonna preach to the side more. Whoever's louder, they're getting more preaching today. So, all right, so just as I have loved you, that's the pattern. He says, I don't want you just to love. I want you to love in the way that I have loved you. That's what Jesus is saying. So when I was a kid, my mom wasn't really a sewer. She wasn't she could sew, but you wouldn't catch her doing arts and crafts. She wasn't the kind of person that just did sewing stuff. But one Halloween, she got this great idea. She said, I'm gonna make a costume for my sons. I'm gonna make them there's 4 boys, but I'll make 2 werewolf costumes. And so she had the wisdom to know what I would intuit about how to make that probably might not be right. So she went to the craft store, never done this before in her life, goes to the craft store and gets the pattern. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? She buys this big, heavy, hairy Chewbacca-looking piece of fabric, okay? And she's laying all these patterns out and she's cutting along the right ways and she's stitching together. I'm like, Mom, don't you just know how to do this normally? She says, no, I've got to follow a pattern because I'm just not that good. I've got to have a little bit of help. And so what she made was this werewolf costume. Let's see this thing. Okay, there we are. She did pretty good, didn't she? That's pretty doggone good. She'd never done anything before and she'd never done anything after. So it wasn't like she was good at this stuff. She followed the pattern and then she did it. I know that looks, that's still, y'all have seen Thanos now, so that's not very impressive, but it was pretty impressive to me. That was pretty awesome. That was me, by the way, also. Thank you, yeah. I didn't know I'd be posing for y'all, but that's what I was doing. It was non-intuitive what the pattern was. So my mother had to follow a very clear pattern. Jesus gives us a pattern, and he amplifies it through Paul in the chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians. You've seen this at weddings, you know about this chapter, but this is really how to love specifically. This is how to do what Jesus was commanding. So love is patient, love is kind. It's not jealous. Love does not brag. It's not arrogant. Does not act unbecomingly. Does not seek its own benefit. It's not provoked. Does not keep an account of a wrong suffered. Does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth. Keeps every confidence. Believes all things. Hopes all things. And endures all things. That's the pattern, really. That's the pattern of how Jesus loved you. I mean, that's what Jesus has done for you. And so what I want to do is give you a little prescription, okay? God's the doctor, I'm the prescription writer. So once a day, I need us to take this potion. And here's the first one. Love loans strength instead of condemning weakness. Love loans strength instead of condemning weakness. Love is patient and love is kind. Love is not pushy. Love doesn't demand it happens right now in my time. Love is okay with you go at your own pace. Well, I'm strong enough to go with you. I'm not gonna get irritated right now. I'm gonna love you and resist sometimes what my inner person or my flesh wants to do, and I'm just gonna be nice and patient with everything. And that's what Jesus was for you and me. Jesus shows up and he says, all right, I'm going to die for the sin of mankind, including you. I'm gonna pay the penalty. And after I invite you into relationship with me and forgive all your sin, you'll notice that Jesus doesn't immediately appear to anybody and be like, all right, man, come on, dude. I'm so disappointed at how you're not acting right now. Now, to be sure, there are places we are failing Jesus still. We're not doing as well. But Jesus is not irritated. He's not impatient. He's like, oh, baby, we'll get there. Just keep on keeping on. I know we can do it together. And then he draws us near. It reminds me of the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8. Y'all remember this? Okay, so she has been set up. The religious leaders of the time, they want to know what Jesus is going to do when someone actually has sinned. So she's set up somehow by these leaders. They get her into adultery, and then they rend her from the very act, and they stick her right in the middle of the street. They say, Jesus, what are you going to do with this woman? Because in the law of Moses, anyone caught in adultery, we're supposed to stone her, which is a way to kill people. And so Jesus, being who Jesus is, he's like, all right, well, y'all, whoever's without sin, you go ahead and start the murder process. Go ahead, whichever one of you it is. And of course, they all walk away. And then Jesus looks her in the eye. He says, hey, where's your condemners? She says, oh, they're not here. He says, well, I don't condemn you. She says, I'm patient with where you are. I don't condemn you right now. You're not, even though you have failed, I'm not gonna hold you to my expectations and be irritable about it. You have imperfections, and you and I have imperfections. And Jesus is just patient. He's just patient with them. He's like, yeah, I know it's gonna take a while. And what he asks is, so go ahead and be patient with people. That means try in your relationships to get out of the habit of just snap judgments. I'm just like, well, this is what I think about it. And you kind of even heard half the story maybe. And you just, you don't even always take the time to listen. You don't value their opinion enough to just say, maybe I just don't know everything, and if you give me some more information, I can be patient while I hear it, and we might all make better decisions if I just slow right down. Because Jesus was patient, and that's the pattern, so I'll be patient. Let me give you another one, maybe a little bit harder, especially for some of the ones who you've got a partner, you've got someone you're dating, you've got someone you're married to, and you're waiting for them to really get it about Jesus. Like you're pleading with them, you're begging with, oh, I wish, they're leaving little books around. I hope they find that, so then they'll know. You turn on Carter on the big screen, then you walk out of the room because he's gonna be preaching. They're coming in, so you're doing that kind of thing. And I know that you mean well with that, but often what it feels like is it feels pushy. It feels like you're not allowing them the grace to make their own decision and have the process of self-discovery for themselves. And so it sounds right, but it's actually impatience, and that's not the pattern. That's not the right way that Jesus has asked us to love. And love is kind. Love is kind. Jesus says, I'm gonna give you what you can't do on your own. See, Jesus is very aware that you and I have broken his commands, and he says, instead of giving you judgment for it, I'm actually going to take your judgment for it. I'm gonna be kind. Kind is me loaning you my strength while you're weak. Kindness says, I see your weakness, I see your insecurities, I see your imperfections, I see you doing something wrong, and I could lay down the gavel and say, you did that. And you might even be right, but that's not kind. That's not what Jesus would do in his kindness. Jesus goes ahead and he rescues you from that thing. I wanna give you an example, and I wanna give you a scripture that's gonna help you understand this a little bit better. See, you probably know, okay, so Jesus paid the penalty for your sin with his blood. He was perfectly innocent. That means he had the ability to pay for it, okay? So then he pays kind of a ransom to get you out of trouble, to get you out of eternal separation from God, and to get you out of all the consequences of all your sin. He paid that ransom, but he also did something else. He obeyed for you. Every time he walked on earth, for 33 years, he was taking steps of obedience that he's like, I don't need this. I'm already perfect. But all my obedience, I want it to accrue to your account. All his obedience is given to you. That's why when you're walking along and you're stumbling, you're just in a sin tailspin, you're just doing stuff wrong, think about this as the grace of Jesus cushion, okay? This is the Jesus grace cushion. And because Jesus has obeyed entirely for you, as you're stumbling, he throws that thing down. And you stumble and you go, oh, but I'm caught by Jesus' gracious obedience. I don't have to get it all right. It's already right. He already got it right for me. Isn't that awesome? Now, I know that some of you are going to wonder if that's in God's word, and it is. So Romans 5:19, because one person disobeyed God, talking about Adam, many became sinners. But because one other person, Jesus, obeyed God, many will be made righteous. Because he obeyed, he can give you his obedience. And every time you stumble, yes, you stumble in many ways, but as you stumble, you are caught by grace. He's like, I know you messed that up, but I already give you my obedience, so it's all good. I took your sin that you just did, and I put it on the cross, and it died, and I gave you my obedience. So you have a grace cushion forever, even when you sin willingly. Is that redonkulous grace? Is that just the awesomest God you could possibly imagine? What Jesus does, and you might have heard, Jesus fulfills the law. That means that's related. He did all the right things of the law, and then he gave them to you so that when you break God's moral law, you're still okay because you land on Jesus's cushion. Jesus freed you from the law. Does that make sense? He doesn't relate to you on the basis of the law. He relates to you now he took care of the law, so now he relates to you on the basis of grace. He says, we're in relationship. I'm just good with you, and I caused it to be that way. That's what he did. Now, if Jesus did that, Jesus freed you from the law. Everybody listening? Jesus freed you from the law. He doesn't relate to you on the basis of the law. He freed you from the law. It's probably wise to not hold somebody else to the law if you want them to love you more. Spouses, people dating, here's what your spouse doesn't need. They don't need more laws. Jesus didn't use laws with you, he used grace. And so if you just give them rules, I expect this, and you're not doing this, and I need you to do this, and here's where you let me down, and here's where you're failing me, and here's where I'm disappointed because I had these expectations and you're not doing it. And I get it, man. There might be some legit expectations that you thought were going to be met. All I'm saying is, if you're trying to relate now, mostly on the basis of laws and lists that you're giving, and saying, here's where I'm still disappointed, that's not the pattern. That's not how Jesus did it with you. What Jesus did with you instead is he gave grace. So as your spouse, as the one you're pursuing, as the one you're engaged to, as they make mistakes, as they do things wrong, here's what kindness does. Kindness pre-decides. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if they're doing it wrong. It doesn't matter if they have blemishes that I don't particularly like. Even before they fall, I'm ready to catch them by grace. Before they even make the mistake. While they're making a mistake, I throw it down. Why? Because that's how Jesus relates to me. That's the pattern. That's how I'm to relate to others. I feel like this is way better than the amount of amens I'm getting. Maybe you guys are just trying to contemplate it, but I was like coming out of my chair when I wrote this down. You've got expectations that aren't met, but hey, just demanding more of it is not going to make it go any better. And this is the danger, because even 1 Corinthians 13, it can become law if that's how you're looking at it. So if you take your Bible and you go to 1 Corinthians 13 and you go to your spouse and you say, look at all the ways that you're not doing 1 Corinthians 13. You just made law for them. And now they're trying to live up. The law's heavy, man. See, this is what the first century Christians figured out. They're like, the Jewish nation, our ancestors, all this time they tried to obey the law, and all they learned was the law has no power to actually help you obey. It just tells you where you're wrong. So all you can do is really feel bad about it until Jesus Christ comes and pays the price and pays for it. So everywhere you see your spouse need grace, even when you're provoked, love is not provoked. Love is not provoked. Okay. Love is not provoked. So that means, dear heart, I know, and I know you don't even think about yourself this way, okay, but it's got to be somebody because it's in the Bible. Provoked is touchy. Provoked is there's sensitive and then there's too sensitive. There's responding appropriately and then there's responding to, oh, but I'm so hurt by this. And I get that, dude. Sometimes you're hurt and sometimes you're being mistreated. Yeah, I understand that. But just go with me here. Think about this for a second. You've met people. You know people like this. You know people, they're just hard people. Right? You've met them. You're like, man, they're just always crabby. I don't know what happened to them. They're just always, like, no matter what you do, they're a harsh person. Those people are real. And hopefully by the grace of God, they're going to get better and better. Since those are real, by this too, there are people that are just too touchy. And we sometimes think, I think especially in this generation, that if we're in tune with our emotions, we're kind of special. And Christians do this some of the worst. They're like, I'm very in tune with my emotions, which means that I have more discernment than other people. If I feel it, that's God, and I'm right. And my pain is God. It's God's pain. Yeah, I feel you, okay? I feel you. Consider the possibility also that maybe you're just touchy, okay? Like maybe you're easily provoked. Maybe you're like, here we go again, being persecuted. It's my cross to bear. It's possible that all of us are sometimes just too touchy. We're ready to argue at the drop of a hat. It's like, they did it again. I'm ready to go now. I've been saving this one up all week. Because you're easily provoked. And then the point is, that's not love, man. That's not love. And I'm not saying be a doormat for people. Obviously, there's more conflict management. We've talked about that in another message. I'm not talking about that, but sometimes, bro, you're not being treated like a doormat. You're just being touchy. You're taking it too seriously. You're taking it too much to heart. What you think they think is not even what they think. Love is not provoked. So love loans strength, number one. Love loans strength instead of condemning weakness. Number two, love veils itself to forefront the other. Love veils itself to forefront the other. It's not jealous. Love does not brag. It's not arrogant. One thing I love about Jesus, he said it. I did not come to be served, but to serve. See, Jesus is the most important person in the universe. He's like the biggest deal. There's nobody more awesome and more important than Jesus. And yet Jesus, from day one, doesn't make it about Jesus. What does he do? He makes it about you, right? He came to seek and to save that which was lost. He could have shown up on earth with like trumpet blast, like, yep, I am the man. I'm the guy. And he would have been right. And we might have all like fallen at his feet in fear, but he said, nah, that's not the pattern of Jesus though. The pattern of Jesus is, I want to show you that I'm into you. And I'm ready to love you over the long haul. I'm ready to spotlight you. I'm ready to make you feel special. I'm not gonna focus, now he wants us to focus on him in the sense that it's healing, but he starts with, let me focus on you. And you've seen this even when you start to warm up to the things of God, even as you start to explore, a relationship with Jesus. I mean, I've just noticed this, man. When you are first exploring the things of God, he'll just answer your prayers like that. Like he's trying to prove it's a good deal with me. And so you're young, and you're like, maybe I'll pray about this. Boom, there it is. Boom, there it is. And what is he doing? He's like, I'm making it about you. I'm not starting with me. I'm saying, I'm into you. I'm after you. I'm awesome. And it applies to our relationships too. See, love allows the other person to shine. Love isn't trying to one-up the other person. Love isn't jealous. Love isn't trying to say, well, if something good happens to you, that's somehow a threat to me. And that makes my story worse. And so I gotta find a way, and I have a slight resentment. And you might have that, we've all had that from time to time. But if you have that a lot, that is a sign from heaven. That's your conscience, heaven using your conscience to say, something is wrong here. I shouldn't be resentful that someone else has success. Because why? Because it's not love. Well, Carter, they do it on TV. They do it on TikTok. They do it everywhere. Yeah, well, that's not Jesus. The way of Jesus is very uncommon. That's why you come to church. You gotta unlearn a lot of the stuff the world's putting in you and learn the others. See, all of us can get drunk on self-importance. And make it about me. It's my agenda, it's my thing. Love is not arrogant. Arrogance is a self-admiration. It is we are on our minds too much. And sometimes, really, that's why God gives us spouses. That's why God gives us kids, to teach us there's other things than you. And you need to make them a way more important priority than yourself. So one of the ways that we try to think about this in the Carter house is we talk about winning. My job as a spouse is to help my spouse win. And that looks like a lot of different things. And many of you know this. First, it could be winning God-delegated tasks, okay? So any of your roles, if you're a mother, if you wherever your job is, God has delegated you that task. And so as a spouse, your spouse is supposed to help you do that thing. Or as their spouse, you're supposed to help them do that thing. I remember when I used to have to get up I had to be out of the house by 4:30, so Kenzie would get up and, it's wee hours of the dawn. She was probably up with the baby also just a couple hours ago, but she's making her man cream of wheat, making me some cream of wheat. I got to go drive an hour and a half to work on the railroad for 10 hours and then drive an hour and a half back. It's dark both times you're at the house. And she's like, I'm supporting the role that my man's in. He doesn't like it. I don't like it. But it's what it takes to win in this season. What are the God-level roles that you've been given and your spouse is being given, or the person you're dating has been given, and you can practice? I'm gonna help you win. What is that thing you're trying to do? Whatever it is, let's try to find a way to help you win. It might be their dreams. It might be something that's like, well, we can't even necessarily do this right away, but I see that this is important to you. For Kenzie and I, it was about, hey, we want to plant a church. We want to have a church. We want to be pastoring people. But there's all kinds of other dreams that have come and gone and some that are still exist. And our priority has to be to one another. Whatever you want to do, that's what we're doing. As long as God's cool with it, we're going to find a way to do what you want to do. Well, what about what you want to do? Here's kingdom. Get them what they want, and God will get you what you want. And if both parties are working to get the other what they want, how abundantly blessed is that? Hello? Y'all hearing this? Let's do a couple more. But while we're on dreams, I say this meekly. I know I've run my mouth and just said stupid crap. I've lied on accident. You know what I'm saying? I've told people stuff that I'm like, oh, that's a total not even true. So I get it, man. But just a little caution. Let's aim at, you never shut down your spouse's dreams, man. Never. You never say, well, that's not important. We're not gonna do that. That's not as meaningful as my dreams, so forget about your dreams. Whatever the dreams are, you say, hey man, if God's cool with it, we're gonna run after it. We're gonna do whatever we gotta do because your dreams are my dreams. If you win, I win. And then we both win for Jesus. And then just daily goals. One of the things that my wife and I try to do every morning is, hey, what can I do to help you win today? What are you trying to get in? What are your errands? Can I do some of those for you? Can I pick it up? Can I do it? What are you wanting to accomplish? So I'm shaping my day around you getting your wins and not just getting my wins. My friends, that is having a love that is not arrogant. It's celebratory of someone else. It's backing up so someone else can be spotlighted. And of course, we do it wrong a lot. But those are kind of the goals. It's less the specifics and more the heart set. My heart set is to get the other one what will help them win in Christ. So I'm gonna tell my story. Another impactful moment from watching my old man when I was a kid. Sometimes you get a little bit older and you don't realize how certain things shaped you. But here's another one. We were at a restaurant, or it might have been like a rehearsal dinner or something like that. And the whole family's coming and we're sitting around, one of those round tables, and it's just off a little bit, okay? So like the air conditioning is coming down and my mom is a little bit cold. Most of us are fine, it's not that bad. But my mother is a little bit cold and she's being gracious. She's like, no, it's not a big deal. I'll just sit through it. And my old man, Britt, he stands up, he says, no, we're getting the girl what the girl wants. And it wasn't pushy, but it was firm. He goes to the guy who works there anyway. He's like, we're moving. We need to move. And my wife is a little bit cold, and that's enough to get me to action. And then he gave me a wink at some point during the night, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was essentially, you always get your wife what she wants, man. Find a way, man, to get the girl what the girl wants. It's super powerful, yo. It stuck with me ever since. Hey, spouses, could it be possible that one of the reasons you are on planet Earth is to get the girl what the girl wants, or the guy what the guy wants? Is it possible that you're God's answer to some of that? Whatever you do to help them win, One more application, and we'll shut down. It's your words, baby. It's your words. It's what you say. It's the culture of the home. It's how you speak. Not only do we not diss each other's dreams, there has to be a constant building up because you're celebrating them and pulling your own self back. You're cloaking yourself a little bit to exalt how awesome they are. So that's why you say things during the day like, I gotta tell you what, there is nobody else like you. Holy cow, I can't believe you even married me. I can't believe all the stuff you do. I see you winning over here. I can't believe you do that and you did the vacuuming? What? You did the laundry and you picked that thing up? My mind is blown again and again. And you're not being silly. Like you're looking for things to say, no one's rooting for you, I'm rooting for you. I'm here to tell you you're doing dope, you're doing awesome. I loved even just the little things that you do. I love the way, even that outfit, wow. Other girls, man, they're just jealous of you. The godly women, they're resisting jealousy when you walk in the room because of how you look in that outfit. You find ways to build up. Why? Because occasionally you're gonna say something you regret. You say something wrong. And you want about 7,500 compliments to weigh about the same as that one negative that you brought up. Because they about weigh the same. My friends, there's a Jesus pattern. God has called us to love according to the Jesus pattern. It's super not like the world's pattern, but it makes the whole world lighter for who we're dating, who we're pursuing, who we're married to. Love loans strength instead of condemning weakness. Love veils itself to forefront the other. So I want to give us some prayer homework this week. We're gonna pray. We'll pray two things. The first is, Lord, can you show me places I'm not throwing the grace cushion? I'm letting them fall on their butt. Instead of be like, I knew you were gonna sin, I got you. You're just pre-forgiven. There's where it is. And are there places that I'm missing that I can just help them win? Help me help them win. He'll answer that prayer. Let's pray. God, we know we want it. We like the Jesus pattern. We know we want to do it. There's hard things about it, but we ask for your help now. Nobody can do the Jesus pattern unless it's Jesus doing it through them. So we pray that you'd expand our capacity. We ask that you'd expand our ability to love with increasing discernment, to be a sign and a wonder to generations that follow of how to love well. God, would you show us specifically places we are so missing the grace cushion and we could be using it? Would you show us places we're just too into ourselves and we're not trying to help the other one win? We trust you're gonna do it in Jesus' name, amen.